Alright, so Bleach finally ended, huh? Well, I'm sure it had a satisfying conclusion. Let's take a look. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Wait, but what about... And we never found out what happened to... But then why did they introduce... Wait. Really? Those two? Did it ever even show they had chemistry together? You can't seriously be telling me this is it. This is how it ends? Son of a... So, after 74 manga volumes, a 366 episode anime series, a couple of OVAs, 4 animated films, a bunch of rock musicals, several video games, and countless amounts of miscellaneous merchandise, the Bleach story finally came to a close earlier this year in August, when the manga finally ended. When I heard Bleach had ended, I didn't know if I should care or not. On the one hand, it had been quite a while since I had followed up on it in any fashion. In fact, it had been years since I had even acknowledged any Bleach-related media whatsoever. But on the other hand, Bleach is basically the first real anime I ever watched. By this I mean that it wasn't some dubbed over 4Kids thing easily available on Saturday morning TV, but the first actual anime that a friend recommended to me, and that I had to track down on my own, and that I had to put in the effort to watch while also reading the subtitles. In the end, I guess nostalgia or whatever went out, and so I, like so many other people, decided to check out the ending, only to be brutally disappointed. Holy crap. If someone who basically gave up years ago felt this bad, I can't even imagine those who stuck with it for so long. I mean, there was just so many things wrong with that ending. If you are not caught up with the ending, allow me to bring you up to speed. Basically, Ichigo, who at this point is a Shinigami, and Quincy, and Vizard, and Hollow, and Fullbringer, and Hokage, and Digidestined, and God knows what else, is up against the current big bad, a guy who can control and mess with time itself. Understandably, Ichigo's losing for a while. Then, using magic protagonist powers, he manages to defeat the boss. Hooray! We then have a 10-year time skip in which we learn virtually nothing about the fates of 90% of the cast, including some who are currently in the middle of danger, and see that Ichigo and friends now all have normal human jobs, because apparently Soul Society no longer needs them or something. And oh yeah, for some reason Chad, Heart of Gold, Gentle Giant, only ever fights to protect his friends. Chad is a famous boxer for some reason? Huh. And oh yeah, apparently Ichigo married Orihime and had a son, while Rukia married Renji and had a daughter. Speaking of which, both kids run into each other and Ichigo's kid has powers. Ooh. The end. Now, if that sounds underwhelming, then trust me, reading through it on your own does not make it any better. The sad part is that when you take a minute to step back and think of the series as a whole, well, you can't be too surprised at the ending's quality, since the story has almost always been kind of terrible. I mean, fights with no real stakes, in which people get cut down and show up just fine later on, dozens upon dozens of characters that are introduced and never receive any real backstory or character development, plot lines and ideas that go nowhere, characters who only level up as the story demands it, heaps of needless filler material, etc. With so much going against it, it is no surprise that people got tired of it all, to the point that Bleach's creator, Tide Kubo, was ordered by his higher-ups to put the declining series out of its misery. Now, while it may be super easy to continue to trash talk Bleach, that's not what this video series is about. My What If series is meant to look at what could have been, a brighter timeline, so to speak. And of course, my suggestions for fixing stuff up. The bad news is that with so many problems, it's kind of difficult to say what exactly could have saved Bleach. However, the good news is that with so many things wrong, I don't really think there's a wrong way to go about fixing it. I mean, some things are obvious. If you were to do the opposite of the things I just listed earlier, then already you would have a better show. More focus on less characters, fights with actual life and death stakes, plot lines that build on each other, little or no filler. Now that sounds more like a story I can actually care about. However, the more I kept thinking about and analyzing different things, a crazy idea started to take form in my head. As the title of this video reads, I began to wonder, what if Bleach were 3 different anime/manga stories? Trust me, I know it's a pretty strange idea, but hear me out. Maybe I'm the only one, but I feel that when you look at the first season of Bleach and compare it to the rest of the story, it almost seems like it doesn't fit in. Compared to other seasons where there's always fights to engage in and villains to introduce and powers to show off, the story basically just revolves around the consequences of Ichigo meeting Rukia and discovering the existence of hollows. Sure, there's still action and there are all sorts of character introductions as Ichigo's friends pop up, but overall, the first season has a much more somber and intimate feel. I mean, hell, just look at the first ending song, which is a sad ballad seemingly from Rukia's perspective about her loneliness. Or look at the episode where Rukia tags along with Ichigo's family to visit his mother's grave, and Ichigo tells the story of her sacrifice to save him. Even the episode with Orihime's brother feels like it carries some weight, and we didn't even know very much about the character. There are some pretty good ideas at play here, so that is why, if I could, I would have encouraged Tite Kubo to make this the first anime/manga series. With some reworking, I could easily see this being a successful 24 to 25 episode supernatural anime series. Sure, names and designs would be different, but at its core, it could still be about a male protagonist who meets the otherworldly female protagonist, and together they exorcise evil spirits around his hometown. And, I don't know, maybe it could lead to them having to fight off some sort of evil that wants to take this story's version of Rukia home. And hey, you can even keep all the stuff about Rukia staying in Ichigo's closet and around his house and all that, and perhaps build it into the romance that only slightly got teased in the original. Regardless, this is what I call story number 1. As for story number 2, well, that's easy. You know how a huge chunk of Bleach is all about Ichigo and friends going to another world to save Orihime? The way I envision it, story number 2 can take the best parts of all these arcs and make it into one shorter, better story. As for characters, the way I see it, the Ichigo-like character would still be the protagonist, while the one who was kidnapped can still basically be Orihime. For the rest of the group, Rukia, Renji, Uryu, and Chad type characters in both personality and powers work quite well. Although, perhaps Rukia could be more magic based, so that we don't have 3 different swordsmen. So, what we would get is still the action-filled adventure of a group of superpowered friends who are on a quest to save their friend who has been spirited away, but without all the filler and the need to connect it to a larger Aizen plot. Sure, the antagonist could still be some genius-level leader of another world who wants to use Orihime's powers for his own gain, but without the whole, I'm 20 steps ahead of you, and every single thing you do is a part of my plan all along crap. Nope. Once again, just a relatively short 24 to 25 episode anime series, and then we are done. Last but not least, we come to story number 3. The premise for what I feel could have been its own series is quite simple. Remember when all of Soul Society was fighting the Espada throughout the fake Karakura town and Hueco Imagine a whole anime series that is basically just that. On the one side, you have the Shinigami army with its 13 squads, and the most prominent members being the captains and their lieutenants. On the other side, you have a whole army of strange undead creatures, with the most prominent creatures being the Arrancar, who have some sort of sentience, and the leaders being the Ten Espada. Now, let's watch them have an all-out war against each other using all their Zanpakuto powers. As for the reason for the war and character motivations and all that, maybe instead of a plot dump near the beginning, you can instead sprinkle character backstory and relations over time, similar to how Bleach would have flashbacks in the middle of fights for different characters. I don't know about you, but I'd watch a show like that. And unlike the other 2 stories, which I would keep short in order to be more concise, I would say to keep this one going for as long as you can keep it interesting. So there you have it. All the different content taken from Bleach and then cut down and transformed into 3 different stories. Could it work? Well, who's to say? Perhaps all of this would be out of Tite Kubo's comfort zone, or perhaps his publishers never would have approved it, or maybe fans would think that all of these ideas are garbage. All I know is that for a while it was fun to follow along with Bleach, and then one day it wasn't. And to see the half-assed, hurried ending that it was given makes me sad and makes you think of all the wasted potential. Look, I get it. Everyone wishes to be like One Piece and keep going forever and ever while keeping relatively good quality along the way. But unfortunately, not everyone has that talent. I feel that perhaps if the creator of Bleach had really taken the time to stop and reflect on all his ideas, maybe he could have done something different. Sure, it would be nice to keep your manga going forever and ever, but would there have been any shame in doing shorter series? Maybe he could have churned out his ideas over time and been known as a powerhouse for succeeding across multiple works. What could have been, I guess. But hey, that's just my opinion. And remember, don't take anything I say too seriously. After all, I'm just a wannabe reviewer. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, and welcome to the land at the end of the video. If you've stuck with me this far, then thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the content. In fact, why not go ahead and give the video a like if you enjoyed it, or a dislike if you thought it was unimaginative garbage. Feel free to voice your opinion in the comments below. And hey, if you liked my video, you can always hit subscribe so you can be notified about my next one. I'm hoping to do something video game related. If you want to see my previous video on the How I Met Your Mother ending, you can do so by clicking on the drawing Rukia is holding. And last but not least, I have social media you can follow me on. Did you know that in the new Pokemon game, you can lay your character in people's beds, and they will describe the feel of the bed to you? Well, I've been documenting that on Twitter if for some reason that interests you. Or hey, tweet me the weird stuff you found in the game. That's cool too. Enough rambling though. I'm Wannabe Reviewer, and until next time.